Today, we're going to talk about the 3 people you need to know as a new engineering manager. My name is Matthew Devine. I'm an executive and leadership coach in Toronto, Canada, and I support new engineering managers with giving practical leadership tips and support them to be more effective and more inspiring leaders for their teams. So here's the problem. You're a new manager, you've just started, you're working through your work program, you're solving engineering problems, and you're trying to meet those deadlines. There's a lot of work to do, and suddenly you're hit with some kind of employee issue. Maybe somebody's gone on a sick leave, or maybe they've decided to transfer to a different department, or maybe quit altogether. Or for those of you who are in companies that are unionized, maybe somebody's filed a grievance and suddenly your work program is just held up. What do you do? Who do you call? Well, the first thing that most people say, well, just go to HR, go to your human resources department, ask them for help. That's what they're there for. They deal with the people. Well, of course, that's the obvious answer, but let's get real close on this one. Who exactly do you need to talk to in HR? Do you know? You know of HR. You know it's there. But have you ever made the attempt to actually get into contact with any of the people? Well, let's talk about the 3 people you actually need to know in HR in case something ever goes wrong. Because, let's be serious, you're a manager, you're working with people, there will always be something that goes wrong. Or maybe not wrong, maybe it's just you'll have difficulties and you need that help. So here are the 3 people that you need to know as an engineering manager. The first group of people you need to know in the HR department is the HR Support Center, the Human Resources Support Center. Now, the HR Support Center, this is normally the administrative function of HR. A lot of the HR records are stored here, a lot of the day-to-day transactional stuff takes place. So normally employees, if they have questions about their benefits, or if they have questions about a leave of absence, like a maternity leave, this is where they go to get their questions asked or file paperwork. They do all the admin work. They also house a lot of the employee records, so they have a lot of information available to them. And this is where it's going to become very useful for you as a manager, because as a manager, what they're going to be able to help you with is ensuring you get all the policies and procedures that apply to you on your job. They will also be able to support you with learning the HR systems, and this could include your timesheets, expense management reports, performance management reports, all these kinds of things that you may be familiar with as an employee, but you've never done them as a manager. And if you're anything like me, some of the systems you've worked on are quite a bit different from a manager's perspective. So the HR Support Center will be able to help ensure that you have the right information on how to use these systems so you can help your team effectively. They're also going to be a good place to go to get information about any training that might be available, or at least point you in the direction of where to find that information. This is going to be, of course, useful for your own development, but also useful if you need to know where training might be available or resources might be available for your employees. They will know where to find that stuff. So those are the things that make it useful for a manager. Here's what I recommend when it comes to the HR Support Center. Set up a meeting with the supervisor or the manager of the HR Support Center and get them to talk to you about what do you need to know as a new engineering manager. Ask them about where to find the documentation. What do you need to know when it comes to developing your team? These people will have seen a lot of stuff. They will have seen all the crazy stuff that goes on in an HR department, and what managers come up with when they're not prepared. So they will be able to both tell you some horror stories, but also be able to direct you in the right way. Find out what do the best managers do, and how do they get prepared, and how can the HR Support Center help you be prepared to help support your team. Quick aside, Why am I out wandering around as opposed to sitting at my desk? Well, I figured management is not something you do sitting down. Management is something you do on the move. You need to be actively engaged with your employees' life, your employees' work. You need to know what's going on. You can't just sit back and just hope that things are working out. You need to be doing stuff. You need to demonstrate to your employees that you're there. Now, this is different than micromanaging, and this is different than hanging over their shoulders. This is about being active and being present. And we'll talk about that in a later video, but that's why I'm out walking, and that's why this is important. The second person you need to know in HR is the recruiter or the talent acquisition consultant. So either recruitment or talent acquisition, they go by either name, but that's the second person you need to know. Who's your recruiter? And the recruiter is important to know, and hopefully you don't need to use them very often, but you kind of want to know who they are. And the reason for this is that in a lot of organizations, the recruiter is assigned to a particular division or department. And this means that you need to know who your specific person is. It may not be obvious. Now, thankfully, recruiters are probably going to be the friendliest people to talk to in HR. You know, I think most of HR people are pretty friendly, but of the friendliness, recruiters are going to be the best people to talk to. They have to be. They're talking to people every day. So good for you. Make a friend with one of the recruiters. Now, the recruiter is going to be really important to help you through a hiring process, because there are a lot of steps and a lot of things to take into consideration when you're hiring a new employee, much more than you realize. And if you've never interviewed before, outside from interviewing for your own job, they are going to be an invaluable resource for you. So they will help support you through the entire selection process, from getting a job description, getting the job posted, screening candidates, helping you with any assessments that need to be done. So there could be skills assessments. Sometimes they have psychometric assessments that need to be completed. They'll walk you through all that. They will help you with the interview, provide interview guides. Now, they may not be sitting in the interview with you, but they will certainly help you with that process. And then they'll help you with the final selection, and probably provide you with advice around proper compensation, so that you are offering something that's attractive to the candidate but also fair to your other employees. They'll help you through that whole process. What I recommend is setting up a meeting with your recruiter. Figure out who that person is and schedule a meeting with them. What you want to ask them is, what do they need when it comes to posting a job? They may require information about the job itself. They may want to know details of how many positions and other things around the role itself. They'll be able to talk you through that, but find out what do they typically need, so that if you ever do have an employee who leaves and you need to post a job, you can be ready with the right information. Also ask them, what sort of things do you need to be thinking of when it comes to preparing for interviews? Some companies have interview guides readily available, other companies don't. They may recommend that you start thinking about what kinds of questions and things to consider for the job that you were posting. And recruiting for jobs and selecting for positions is a whole other topic. We'll cover that in a separate video. So set up a meeting with your recruiter. Get them to tell you what are best practices and what do they need to know when posting a job. The third person you need to know in the HR department, and probably the most important person, is your HR BP, or the Human Resources Business Partner. Sometimes they're called an HR consultant. That's the third person you need to know in the HR department. This is usually a specialist who is assigned to, like the recruiter, a particular division or department. So you'll have your own HR BP that you get to talk to and work with. Now, they are going to be the ones you go to for the more serious, the bigger issues, the more challenging, intricate ones, not your day-to-day stuff. If you have a day-to-day request, go to your HR support center. If this is something serious, talk to your HR BP. So think big strategic level stuff. So they can help work through conflicts with employees. They may be able to help with negotiations between departments, where you're dealing with a lot of people and trying to determine how to manage those resources, those human resources. You know, they may often get involved, if you're a unionized organization, they may get involved in some of the labor negotiations or grievance resolution processes. And they're also going to be helpful in determining long-term strategy for the team, figuring out, oh, where do you want to go with this department? Is it going to be expanding? Is it going to be transferring? Is there any, you know, what's happening with the group over the long term? And how do you do the things today to help you be ready and successful in the future? So your HRBP is somebody who will help you with these big issues. I recommend figuring out who this person is and setting up a meeting. And that seems to be my advice for all of these. But ultimately, you need to know these people. And so having a meeting with them makes sense. So set up a meeting with your HRBP. Now, the trick with this group is that they're often very, very busy. They are supporting a lot of different managers, dealing with very difficult issues. So don't be surprised if you might have difficulty getting them on the calendar. Now, they're going to be useful because they are going to be familiar with the bigger issues in your department, things that you may not be familiar with as an employee, but they are going to know the history of that and be able to tell you, all right, here are the landmines that you need to be avoiding or be mindful of when you're dealing with different departments, different groups within your division, different managers who might be a bit tricky. They'll be able to help you out with that. Ask them what kinds of things they recommend you do and what they've seen as far as best practices are concerned. Get them to tell you the best stuff, because like the HR support center, they've got some horror stories that they will be able to share with you. Now, confidentiality reasons, they may not be able to share the details, but they will be able to at least point you in the right direction. That's extremely useful for a new manager. Also, it's important to ask them how best to work with them. Some of them will prefer that you call them directly. Others are totally fine with you sending them an email. But let them tell you how best to work with them so that you can be more effective when you need to reach out. In summary, the top 3 people you need to know in the Human Resources Department are 1, the HR Support Center, 2, your recruiter or your talent acquisition specialist, and 3, your HR business partner or HR consultant. Was this helpful? Let me know in the comments below. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. If you're catching me on LinkedIn, then follow my profile for more updates. And if you think this is helpful and you'd like more practical leadership tips, click on the link below and I'll take you to my free download on how to ask effective questions. Great questions, in fact, because questions are often the starting point for solving a lot of problems. You need information, you need to talk to somebody, but there's good ways to ask questions and better ways to ask questions. So click on the link if that's of interest to you. My name is Matthew Devine, and if you're a new engineering manager, be sure to be amazing. Till next time.